Hi, everyone, and welcome to Progressive Short Takes once again. So, what I'd like to address today is the question of whether we're really looking at a close race for the presidency. In the last week or so, some of the polls have been showing a tightening of the gap between Joe Biden, that is Joe Robinette Biden, and Donald Trump. And so people have begun to suggest, well, really, it's going to be a close race after all, or maybe it will be a close race. On the other hand, there are others who say, okay, look, the morning consult poll is showing that Joe Biden is leading Trump in every demographic category, of note. And this is unexpected, and it's not like the situation in 2016, at all. And besides, there's not near the hatred for Joe Biden within the community, within most of the community of people, than there was for Hillary Clinton. People were really hostile to Hillary Clinton. They were evidently hostile to her personality, hostile to her manner, of speaking. And while they have plenty of doubts about Joe Biden and his capacity and capability to be president, there's not the same degree of anger at him. On the other hand, there's a tremendous amount of anger building towards Mr. Trump. And that is simply the fact of the matter. On the other hand, Trump's base still seems to be firmly there. And some people are saying that he still remains within striking distance. You can't sell him short. He hasn't found a formula yet which works with the voters, but he's going to try all kinds of crazy things between now, and the election, and maybe he's going to hit on something, and you can't really count him out. Well, I would never advocate for by counting anybody out. I think the public is far too volatile, even more volatile now, since the increasing amount of chaos that Trump has been creating among the public. That's simply the reality. The moorings of people have become ungrounded, and therefore we can have very major swings within a very short time. I think it's hard to deny that particular prospect. On the other hand, on the third hand, maybe this is the fourth hand that I've already mentioned during this very short period, but we all have to consider that we seem to be going back to a situation where COVID is really out of control, is again out of control. And the backdrop of all this, is still the fact that we're looking at all kinds of deaths in the background. So let's look at those for just a minute. Okay. So as of today, according to the Worldometer site, we have total debts in the United States of 167,150. And we have deaths per million of 505. Those deaths per million have been accelerating now. If we exclude Andorra and San Marino, two very small places, the United States ranks eighth in the world in deaths per million. And even though there are a number of prominent nations that are worse than we, their death rates per million have been remaining fairly constant. In the UK, this has been true. In Belgium, it's been true. They're still accelerating in Peru, however, but in Spain, it's been true. In Italy, it's been true. They've still been going up fairly rapidly in Sweden. Chile's ahead of us, and they've been increasing very rapidly too. But we have a terrible record, and it's not just a terrible record. It's also that 167,150 deaths is now projected by the University of Washington to rise to nearly 300,000 deaths by December 1st, okay, or thereabouts. That's another 130,000 deaths to go, unless we do something drastic about the virus, and there is no indication that we're going to do anything drastic about the virus. So what's going to happen? Well, of course, people are still on the road right now to sending their children back to school. Children going back to school. Cases among children have now risen in the United States to 100,000 cases as of this morning. And young children are beginning to die from COVID. We've been seeing it more and more frequently. It's a risk to send the children back to school. But the states, many states, still want to reopen the schools. There's going to be a degree of caution. But as a result of what goes on in the next 3-4 weeks, there are going to be more and more child COVID cases, and more children, okay, are going to die. And that is going to create even more rage among the populace, especially, well, it's going to occur in the suburban areas, it's going to occur in the urban areas, it's going to occur all over, okay, in the rural areas. When kids start to die, the people responsible for sending those kids back to school are going to have rage directed at them. Joe Biden is not sending kids back to school. Donald Trump is part of the movement to send kids back to school. There's still pressure on the governors to reopen the economy, and because there's no agreement among the Republicans, okay, and Democrats concerning giving people enough money to allow them to stay home, the pressure to reopen the economy is still going to remain. Businesses, governors, communities are going to take chances, and taking chances are going to increase the case rate from COVID, and the death rate that is due to COVID. That's going to increase over the coming weeks. We've had the case increases now, and we have had deaths going over 1,000 again, going into the 1,300s and 1,400s. And I don't know how long we're going to have those increases for, but most probably at least for the rest of this month. That means going into September, we're going to see people enraged over the increasing deaths. We're going to see these projections that may go even higher than they are now, even higher than the 300,000 deaths, than they are now. The finger is still going to be pointed at the Trump administration and Trump because they have no comprehensive plan to fight this. There's no change going on with respect to that. They're still stubbornly sticking to the ad hoc stuff that they're doing. That is not going to suffice. The anger is going to increase over the next month, I think through September, and most probably into October. And of course, the flu season is coming up again. We don't know what the flu season is going to bring. But in October, with people expecting the flu season and with anxiety running rampant concerning the double effect of the threat of flu and the threat of having COVID at the same time, we don't know what kind of effect that is going to have. It's going to be too soon for the vaccines, even though therapeutics are improving and the situation there is improving. We're very likely to have a volatile economic situation and a volatile disease situation through September into October as we approach the election. I don't think that makes for a tightening of the gap. I think what we've been seeing right now is a short-term tightening of the gap because the economy seems to be doing slightly better. I think new statistics on the economy by the middle and end of this month are going to show that the economy has been getting worse, has been turning for the worse, and that COVID has been turning for the worse as well. And I think that the end result of that is going to be that the gap is not going to be tightening, it's going to be broadening. That the disapproval rating of the Trump administration and Trump himself is going to fall further. In some of the polls, it's 42 now. I think it's going to be falling under 40. I think if Biden doesn't make any serious mistakes, it's just not even about Biden anymore. He seems to know, that it's not about him. It's about getting rid of Trump increasingly. The more extreme measures he puts in, the more people are interested in getting rid of him. Imagine trying to sabotage the mail system so people are forced to go to the polls. Then, with respect to demographics, what Trump is aiming to do, he wants to tighten his hold and regain the majorities among people who are 45 and over. That's what he's looking to do. But these are the very people who are most likely to use the mail-in option if the mail-in option exists. On the other hand, if the mail-in option doesn't exist, or that, is threatened, who are the people most likely to go to the polls, stand in line, wear masks, stand in line, and vote across the United States? It's going to be people whose risk of death is the least. It's going to be the 18 to 29 group or the 18 to 34 group. I guess 18 to 29 and but 29 to 44. It's going to be those two groups that will have the lesser risk of contracting the COVID virus, who can most afford to stand in line to get rid of Trump. And Trump is most unpopular in these groups anyway. So what is he doing by sabotaging the mail system? He's creating a system where the voters, where the gap is currently the smallest, will be less likely to have their votes counted. That's the situation he's building. So what I'm saying is, I do think that Trump is toast, okay, in this election. I think it's going to be a blowout for Joe Biden. I think what pollsters do is they give you a snapshot and a moment in time. You have to interpret that snapshot in light of other trends. What I say is, look at the trends in the economy and in COVID fatalities over a period of time, and what our expectations are with respect to that. And then ask yourself, is the gap going to be tightening, or is it going to be getting wider? I think it's going to be getting wider. Thank you for listening. This one is a little longer than I'd hoped, but I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you soon for another Progressive Short Take.